Good evening. My name is Miguel Moravic. My speech will be casual, so please make yourselves comfortable. I'll begin with a question. How many of you in this room pay income taxes? A few of you. Well, by the time that we graduate, we will all be paying our dues to the government. I did some math and figured out that if every single undergraduate student and every single faculty member paid what the average American does in income taxes, the Vanderbilt community would raise about $70 million for Uncle Sam. Now, what if I told you that every year the government will take all of our hard-earned $70 million, dig a big hole in the ground, and throw it all away? That is effectively what the US government does every year by minting the 1-cent penny coin. We can no longer bear to produce the useless penny coin. Today, I will explain exactly what the penny is costing you, what we can do to take it out of circulation, and how this will benefit you. First, let's consider the problematic penny. Today, it is expensive and wasteful, but that wasn't always the case. So what gives? Zinc prices, which control the production cost of the penny, have doubled in the last decade. A 2011 annual report by the Department of the Treasury reveals that each 1-cent penny coin costs 2.4 cents to produce. So that means for the 5 billion coins that were produced last year, $120 million was spent to produce less than 50 million of currency. Right off the bat, that is a loss of $70 million. A waste of what we as a Vanderbilt community just raised. This is inexcusable to each and every one of us. And to make matters worse, unlike the penny, other forms of currency actually return a profit for the US government. The $100 bill is considered a valuable national export, according to a New York Times article, which was made by a correspondent who covers the Federal Reserve. Quarters and dimes are also money makers, so the penny has no excuse as a coin. The fact is that unlike other forms of currency, the penny is uniquely wasteful. I'd like to ask the audience to raise their hand if anyone has used a penny in a transaction in the last week. The last month? The last year? Very few of you raised your hand, and that's because the penny is not worth your time. In 2015, the average American worker made about a penny per second. So if you were to spill an entire roll of the coin on the floor, it would literally not be worth your time to bend over and pick the coins up off the ground. Let's compare the size of the penny to the size of the nickel. Now, to have the same value as a nickel, you would need 5 pennies, but that would also take up 5 times as much space and be twice as much weight to carry. This is not cost-effective for businesses because it's not worth paying extra to transport the pennies from the banks to the stores when you can pay half as much just to use nickels. The military has known this for a long time, and that's why 36 years ago, they completely abandoned using the penny in their stores in favor of rounding to the nearest nickel at their international bases. It's disappointing that the government hasn't followed the military's lead in this course of action. Fortunately, there is an alternative pathway for us. The first thing we'll need to do is pass legislation in Congress to retire the penny coin. This has been attempted before, as was the case with the Coin Act, or the Currency Overhaul for an Industrious Nation. The bill was introduced by Republican Representative Jim Colby in 2006, but was ultimately defeated by the Zinc lobby. There is hope, however, because 6 years later, during an interview with the Huffington Post, President Barack Obama came out to support retiring the penny for the very first time, meaning that there would be bipartisan support for this kind of legislation. If such a bill were legalized, the next thing to do would be to begin a massive recycling effort to remove the penny from circulation. Fortunately for us, our neighbors up north have been doing this for years. Since 2012, the Canadian Mint has been trading in their pennies to make a profit. They're doing this by reselling the coins back to the zinc industry, making a revenue of $42.5 million, according to an article in the Huffington Post in 2014. As you remember, the value of zinc has gone up, so this is really an economic opportunity. If the US were to capitalize on this, we could theoretically raise hundreds of millions of dollars, reversing the damage that the penny has caused us. Now that we know that the penny is profitable, let's address the change to the everyday average American. The answer is there's not very much of one. Consumers would not be hurt by this change. An economist at Wake Forest conducted a study at the time of the Coin Act and determining whether or not the consumer would be hurt by rounding to the nearest nickel. His findings were that while sometimes the consumer would be hurt by rounding to the highest nickel, in actuality, that would be canceled out by the amount of times that the cost would be rounded down to the nearest nickel due to sales tax. Therefore, consumers have nothing to lose by dropping the penny. Even so, 75% of our transactions are electronic nowadays, according to the former director of the US Mint, who himself admitted that he is in favor of retiring the penny in a 2015 interview with CNBC. So would all of this effort really be worth a penniless America? The answer is yes. Yes, it would, because a penniless America would allow us to redistribute millions of tax dollars back to federal programs that desperately need the money, all while saving us precious time. To put into perspective what $70 million looks like, please consider the following images. $70 million could pay for the undergraduate in-state tuition of 7,000 college students. Or it could pay for the average annual healthcare costs of 12,000 Americans. If you want something a little more concrete, $70 million could pay for 10 miles of brand new 4-lane highway. Or it could buy 8 M1 Abrams tanks to support our troops, keeping them safe. Indeed, abandoning the penny would significantly improve the lives of tens of thousands of Americans. Undoubtedly, however, every American will benefit from time saved at the cash register. An MIT professor told the Huffington Post in 2014 that fumbling with pennies adds 2.5 seconds to every transaction, totaling up to 2.5 hours wasted per person per year. In our new penniless America, this wasted time will not be missed. Beggars and charities will also not miss the useless penny because the additionally useless nickel will take its place. As the new least valuable form of currency, it too will be carelessly donated to charities and beggars alike, meaning that the needy will actually earn more money faster. Indeed, the future is bright for penniless America. However, this can only happen if you join me in taking action to kill the 1-cent coin. This expensive and useless coin costs us $70 million each year, despite being devoid of value and not being worth picking up off the ground. It must be retired and recycled so that transactions are rounded to the nearest nickel, saving the consumer time. Doing so will make our country stronger and healthier, all while saving the taxpayers' money. From now on, refuse to accept pennies at your local businesses. Refuse to accept pennies as change for your transactions. Leave the pennies on the counter. Lucas, where are you going to leave the penny?
On the counter.
Elton.
On the counter.
Vera.
On the counter.
That's right. In the spirit of President Abraham Lincoln, who is more suitably honored on the $5 bill anyway, I'm calling on each and every one of you to abandon the penny at every available opportunity so that we can make our country make sense again. Thank you very much.